Hey y'all, and welcome back to Flick Connection, where in less time than you normally spend scrolling for something to watch every night, I'm going to tell you about all the best stuff Prime Video just added here in February.
Awesome!
Okay.
I recommend Prime Video movies on this channel every single month, and it has been a long time since I've seen them add this much in one single month. We're going to quickly cover nearly 30 titles that they're adding in February, as well as give you my review of the new Mr. and Mrs. Smith series they just added. Thanks to the Paired app for sponsoring this video. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but first let's talk about some of my favorite movies that they've already added. Movies like Kiss the Girls, starring Morgan Freeman and Ashley Judd. Certainly one of the better movies based on books by James Patterson. To me, this has a lot in common with something like Silence of the Lambs. While the story's very different, the tone and the themes, I think there's a lot of crossover. It's got a very similar feel to it, and it's just an excellent 90s thriller. They've also added Along Came a Spider, which also stars Morgan Freeman playing Alex Cross, but it's not quite as good. I happen to think Snake Eyes, starring Nicolas Cage and Gary Sinise, is a highly underrated Brian De Palma movie. And maybe because the setup feels way too familiar. It's fight night at this big arena, the power goes out, someone's been murdered, and then there's a murder mystery to solve. However, Brian De Palma directed the hell out of this thing. The movie opens up with one long take as Nicolas Cage sort of goes through this arena and meets all the people that you need to know for the movie. And there's several sequences like that that are just absolutely top-notch, making this well worth revisiting this month. And then Ghost World is a great little indie flick that has held up over time. It's fairly slow-paced, but if you generally like artsier little movies like this, it's also very much of the time. This came out in 2001 and definitely feels like it in a pretty fantastic way. You've also got an early role from Steve Buscemi, who's really great in this as well. But ultimately, it's about a couple of teenage girls trying to kind of figure out who they are at the end of their high school career. If you're not in the mood for a coming-of-age dramedy, then Ghost World's probably not going to be for you, but as far as those go, Ghost World is an exceptional one. Another movie that I think is kind of underrated is titled Life. No, not the one with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence, the Alien one with Ryan Reynolds, Rebecca Ferguson, and Jake Gyllenhaal. And that might be one of the reasons this movie was underrated. I think maybe expectations were a little bit high for something with those stars that feels kind of akin to Alien. And that's what this movie is, only just not as good. But you gotta keep in mind, Alien is a masterpiece of horror. It will be a long time still, I think, before that is topped in its genre, and Life was never going to do that. But if you generally like movies like that, Life's a pretty decent one from 2017 that again has a top-notch cast and a pretty cool concept that is maybe delivered a little bit too clumsily for most people's taste. They're also adding, I think, not only one of my favorite movies of all time, but what I would consider to be one of the most important movies you could ever watch in your life, 12 Angry Men. Now, this one's not about anything political or even anything that actually happened. It's a complete work of fiction, but nothing else I've ever seen or read in my life has explained this concept to me so well, and it's that you don't always know everything. Even in something like a murder case that appears to be cut and dry, there's always other information and details you can dig down to that could completely change the way that you view something. Honestly, the delivery in 12 Angry Men is so perfect and holds up so well all these decades later. I really do consider it to be one of the most important movies you could see. It's something I will definitely be showing to my kids when I think they're old enough to understand the core concept. But one of my top recommendations for the entire month is an insanely underrated cop drama titled Copland. Not only is this an excellent flick that was really well directed by James Mangold, but you get killer performances from some killers like Robert De Niro, Harvey Keitel, Ray Liotta. Robert Patrick is amazing in this movie, and Michael Rappaport is really fantastic. I think this is my favorite role of his. And let's not forget the star of the movie, Sylvester Stallone, one of the greatest performances of his entire career. I don't want to say best movie, I mean, you're talking about the guy that did Rocky, but in terms of just raw talent and acting ability, I don't know that Sylvester Stallone did anything better than Copland. It's really fantastic. He put on a bunch of weight and did such a great job of playing this somewhat fragile character that kind of has to rise to the occasion. It's excellent stuff. If you like the genre at all, it is easily one of the best things you could watch on streaming this month across all platforms. Now, there's a lot more movies to talk about, but first I do want to tell you about today's sponsor, the Paired app. Paired is a relationship care app that offers daily couple questions, games, quizzes, and all sorts of stuff to help support a strong, healthy relationship. The Paired app is backed by leading experts in research and is designed to prompt fun and meaningful conversations in your relationship. And fellas, with Valentine's Day coming up, I know flowers, it's a way of making it seem like you care, but there's few ways to show that you care, like literally showing how much you care with an app like this. And that's because you will use this app with your partner. You'll actually answer questions in private, and once you're both done, you can then unlock them, see what the other person answered, and spark conversations later on. As you can see, the quizzes and games are short and sweet, and they're actually fun to fill out, and then even more fun to discuss afterwards. We've had a blast talking about our quizzes after the kids go to bed at night. I've been married for 14 years. We've got a very healthy relationship, 2 kids. We love spending time together, and this app has just helped us connect even further. Just click my link in the video description below to get a 7-day free trial plus 25% off Paired Premium, so you can start creating a deeper connection with your partner. And take it from someone who's been married for 14 years. The stuff the Paired app is going to present to you is not things you're going to think of on your own, meaning it really can help you create a stronger bond with someone you already feel a strong bond with, which is pretty fantastic. Again, to get that free trial and discount, use my link in the description below. It makes for an incredibly thoughtful Valentine's Day gift, if not an unusual one. But speaking of great stuff, let's talk about the rest of the movies on this list. Now, they're also adding a ton of comedies, including one about someone who does not have good communication skills or good relationships, Charlize Theron in Young Adult.
Do you have a reservation?
No.
Is that a dog in your bag?
Nope.
We actually allow small pets with a cleaning deposit.
Good, because I have a small dog in my vehicle.
This is directed by Jason Reitman and is almost like if a romantic comedy went horribly wrong. Charlize Theron plays the author of young adult novels, somewhat successful, but she's alone and decides to go back for her high school reunion and maybe rekindle something with her old boyfriend. She essentially suffers from arrested development. Now, if you're a fan of hers, you need to see this movie. It's fantastic, but otherwise, it's basically just a dramedy with very few laughs. In fact, it can get pretty cringy. Do not expect romantic comedy vibes off of this one. The plot feels like it's plucked from a sitcom or romantic comedy, but the delivery, she is a hot mess in this movie, and again, it will make you cringe. Speaking of hot messes, they're also adding Hot Fuzz, easily the funniest movie to come to the platform this month. Fits right in with the Shaun of the Dead trilogy. I know some people are partial to this as their favorite. I will always love Shaun of the Dead, but Hot Fuzz comes in as a close second. Action movie lovers, this is easily one of the funniest action comedies ever made because it references action movies in such a fantastic way. Another movie from Edgar Wright that I like even more is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I honestly can't believe this didn't become more of a series. The movie is so good. And I say that as someone who's got no interest in reading the original graphic novels. The editing style and all of the effects in the movie are so fast-paced, and there's so many packed into every single scene. And it's entertaining, it's funny, and it's got this really kind of fun, lively story. But again, the filmmaking style of this movie is really unparalleled. I mean, other things try, but my goodness, is this a fun movie to watch. Back when South Park was in its infancy, the creators Matt Stone and Trey Parker also did a movie that released in theaters and did fairly well, titled Basketball.
Hard to believe that just 5 years ago, this game was played only on driveways.
And it's hard to believe just 5 years ago, those girls were only in grade school.
Believe it or not, I've rewatched this somewhat recently. I've seen it a handful of times in my life, and it's always good for a laugh, especially if you like the South Park sense of humor. If you love South Park or really anything else those guys have done and you've somehow never seen Basketball, watch it. It's kind of amazing. If you don't like crude humor though, then just stay away from basketball.
Yeah, it's a real deal down there.
They're also going to be adding Talladega Nights, not necessarily a movie I need to talk about, but if you somehow feel like that's beneath you, you may be surprised to find out that it's Christopher Nolan's favorite comedy.
Really? What? The Ballad of Ricky Bobby is a Christopher Nolan mic drop movie. Is that what you're saying?
If you ain't first, you're last.
They're also adding Blades of Glory, which is funny, but I don't even think it comes close to Talladega Nights in terms of Will Ferrell movies. And then the comedy they're adding, I recommend the strongest this month, even though not for everybody, is Red Rocket.
Call the cops.
No,
I'm calling the cops. 10, 9, 8, 7, faster.
I'm technically off the property, so you can't call the cops because I'm on public land, respecting your boundaries.
Now, I've been waiting for this one to come around on streaming. Here it is on Prime. I loved this movie. This is from director Sean Baker, who previously did The Florida Project and Tangerine. Red Rocket, easily my favorite flick of his so far. In this movie, Simon Rex plays an ex-porn star who is basically hit rock bottom, has to go back to this small Texas town and essentially grovel to his ex-wife and try to rebuild his life, and he is a total piece of crap in this movie.
Before long, it'll be like we're still married.
We are still married.
And he plays it so perfectly. He is so funny. But this is a slow-paced art film. It is very funny. I would say fans of Curb Your Enthusiasm will love this movie. And I can also say, if you're not into it in the first 10 minutes, then the movie's probably not going to be for you.
Mom!
See, your mom's saying, let him in and take a shower. And the dog's like, oh, he's a good man. I can tell by his nice energy. Please let me take a fucking shower.
They're adding a lot more, including Grown Ups 1 and 2, Annie Hall, Basic Instinct, My Left Foot, with Daniel Day-Lewis. I don't really love that movie, but his performance in it is absolutely amazing. And then for horror fans, they're going to be adding Jordan Peele's Get Out, and one of my personal favorites, Event Horizon, one of the most horrific and morbid space horror movies ever created, but in my opinion, a real gem of a flick. Now on the 2nd, they added a brand new series. It's the big one Prime's adding this month. It's titled Mr. and Mrs. Smith, obviously a spin-off of the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie flick. It doesn't feel anything like the movie. It's fairly different. In fact, they could have named this something different entirely and it would not have felt like a ripoff of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Instead of a married couple finding out that they're both actually spies, here you've got two spies that are forced into a false marriage. Essentially, it's their cover. You've seen that set up in movies before, but here you've got Donald Glover, which is another reason I'm not really into this show. I love Donald Glover. I think he's hilarious, charismatic, extremely talented, and his character's a little bit of a dud in this show. Just the way he's written, it seems like kind of a waste of talent. I'd rather watch him do almost anything else. But the show itself is not terrible. If you like episode 1, this could be a good series for you, but do not expect to love Donald Glover in it, and do not expect to get anything remotely close to the Brad Pitt flick. On the 6th, they're adding another funny movie. I don't know what's going on. They just went all in with the comedies this month, but it's a new release titled Strays.
That is the craziest thing I have ever seen. And I'm Dennis Quaid, and Dennis Quaid has seen some shit.
Will Ferrell again and Jamie Foxx both voice a couple of stray dogs. And I found this movie to be much funnier than I expected. This is not one I was really looking forward to whatsoever. I would say people who are just crazy about dogs, you have to see this movie. It is really funny. It's a lot of dog humor, but it's also pretty crude in some surprising ways, and I found all of that stuff really funny as well. This is probably not a movie I'll watch again, but it was full of laughs, and again, dog people, it's well worth the 90-minute runtime. On the 13th, they're adding one I have not seen yet. It's titled Bottoms. This is actually about a group of loser kids. I think most of them are actually gay in the movie, and they start a fight club at their high school. And this looks like it's targeted at a much younger audience than me. Honestly, doesn't look like my kind of thing at all, but I am interested in it, mainly because it's got great reviews and Rachel Sennott stars in it. She starred in Shiva Baby, which is a movie I've highly recommended on the channel before, and Ayo Edebiri from The Bear. So with the two of them in it, and it being about a bunch of gay kids starting a fight club, I gotta see what it's all about. They're also gonna be adding Mission Impossible 5. The Mission Impossible movies have stayed together in a bunch for a while, but for some reason they're only adding 5, Rogue Nation, but it is an exceptional one. Not quite my favorite, but one of the better directed Mission Impossible movies. It's got maybe one of the better stories out of the whole series. And then on the 16th, Jennifer Lopez fans, get ready for a wild one. She's got this new project releasing that's not a movie, it's not a musical, it's kind of a music movie titled This Is Me Now, a love story. It essentially looks like a 2-hour-long music video. I'm sure there's other things mixed in from what I can tell. It looks like it's shot beautifully. I mean, it looks like there's some incredible visuals in it. So, if you're a fan of hers in any way, shape, or form, this is going to be a must-watch for you. Then on the 21st, they're adding the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, which I was pleasantly surprised by. I took my kids to see it in the theater, and I could not believe how funny the movie was. Now, it is a Seth Rogen project, which I didn't really realize when I went to go see it originally, but it feels like it's got a similar sense of humor. Paul Rudd is really funny in this as Mondo Gecko. You've got Post Malone doing a little character as well. The humor is great, and then the animation style is fantastic. It's kind of akin to the new Spider-Man animated movies, except it looks rougher and a little more like scribbled, almost like mixed media. And it's a wild, funny action movie. My kids loved and appreciated all of it, but I think I enjoyed it a lot more too, and not just because I grew up with Ninja Turtles. It did such a great job of speaking to my generation and theirs, which again was something I just didn't expect from this movie. And then we'll wrap this one up with a zombie flick that I was also pleasantly surprised by, even though it's got some years on it now. Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. Now, back when this came out, there was like a blitz of zombie flicks hitting theaters and straight to streaming, this being one of them that stood out to me because I felt like I had seen everything in the zombie comedy genre. And honestly, Shaun of the Dead did it better than anyone else, and they made so many for about a 10-year stretch there that they got really boring. This one managed to cut through the mundaneness of all of those zombie flicks. It felt fresh, it felt just a little bit different. I would say if you love Shaun of the Dead like I do, and you somehow missed this gem, make it one to watch this month. Don't wait for Halloween or anything like that. It really is a fun movie and is surprisingly crude considering it revolves around a bunch of Boy Scouts. But that is a list. Don't forget to check out the link to the Paired app down in the video description below. But I will keep making these videos as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this Prime Video episode, and you will see me on the next one.